Alright guys, we're working with GMT 400. This is this 97 Suburban. I made this little bracket, this little washer here, I should say, to go right in the shock tower. And I don't know if anybody's modified my shock tower here, but this fits perfectly in there. So there we go. Oop. There we go. Alright, that fits right on top of the shock tower. And what we're going to do is thread that little tool in that we have right here. We're going to thread this on there real quick. And we're going to see if we can't relieve enough pressure to get this spring to go up high enough to put our little jack on here with our fancy dancy control arm tool. And we're going to see if we can actually follow the procedure and drop this rear control arm around or down enough so we can flip this spring around, because it's in the wrong direction. So we're going to see if I can do that. Part tightened down pretty good. Got the coils compressed enough to lift the spring off the pocket there and be able to come back to the control arms, and the bolts are loose on both sides. This side is also loose. So the GM way of doing it is actually easier, but this is pretty much the only way that I would do it, is by using the spring compressor that ran perfectly through the shock hole down there, to just use the bottom two hooks on it to grab enough spring to be able to lift it off the pocket like it is here. You can see I got it all the way up off there. So alright guys, as you can see on this GMT 400, I've got the chain going around the control arm and the spring. Spring compressor ran through the top of the shock hole, and the bolts are out. And they do slide right back in. So I did forget the sway bar link was kind of holding it up and I couldn't really understand it, but I do now. So it is definitely, see that? Whee! Definitely moving around, but you can realign all that just by hooking that sway bar link back up. So moving this back out to hook up the sway bar link and then put up that side. Don't try to realign it without that sway bar link, because if you think about it, that's how I was able to get it down. So put that back on before you try to jack that up and try to fight with all this. See how heavy that is? That's ridiculous. I'm gonna have to put my jack underneath there just to support it at this point. So that sway link is really what's holding this whole thing up and will help you align it when it comes time. So we'll get to that here shortly. All right guys, this is pretty much what happens when you pop that sway link off. It pretty much drops down. So that's basically what's holding it all together. Is literally just this sway link keeping this whole thing aligned. I've got my jack over here supporting the whole assembly over here. So we've got everything held up, and it's basically just pivoting off this ball joint right here. I know this isn't good, and this doesn't really look good doing it like this. I should probably support it with a jack under here. You guys can feel free to do that on your own project, but today I'm just trying to show you how to get this thing out of here. So we're gonna go ahead and relieve the spring pressure on this. Cross your fingers and hope I don't die, okay? Thank you. We're about to drop our tool. I want to cry a little bit because this actually works. Like I said, there was no modifications to the spring pocket up here to make this tool fit. It dropped right in. So this is pretty much the easiest way to do it, and our spring dropped. So there we go. This spring was upside down. I couldn't get it in the right way by doing the process of disassembling all this. Slide this back up into the control arm like we had it before. There. Right back up in there. So we're gonna go ahead and compress this, and then we're gonna go ahead and put our sway link back on, and then guess what? We're gonna align it and put the bolts in. So that's where we're at now. All right, I got the spring compressed enough to get the sway link back in, and the arms are starting to line up now. So that one's going back in. The coil's aligned correctly at the bottom. And we're just gonna keep jacking it up and playing with this. It's like playing with the jack, playing with this, back and forth, until you get it up in the air where you want it to go. So I'm continually tightening it up just a little bit and using the jack to bring those arms up into place. The control arm still moves back and forth, everything still moves back and forth, but it's under pressure because we got the spring, so you gotta be careful, okay? So you need to really throw that chain in here in a second. When it starts to get tight, you can really do that in the beginning, and I suggest doing that. I'm kind of just trial and error here, so I'm kind of learning as I go. Just kind of trying to make a video so other people can see that it is possible. All right, I got one side lined up. About to get the other side lined up. And we still got our tool in there. The coil's facing the correct direction now down there. And the flat piece is on the top with the insulator on it. Super excited about that. See, we're all good down here. Now it's just a matter of putting the bolts back in. So let's grab a bolt. And make sure it goes in. Yeah, it wants to. Feels like it's a little bit off. It feels like it's gonna want to go in though. Yeah, it's starting to go. That's pretty much it though. I'm gonna fight with it a little bit and get it in, and then I'll line up the other side and get it in. After a fair share of negotiating the top, the bottom, and the jack that I had underneath here to move this whole thing back and forth, I got the bolts in and I got the spring back in. Now when you get closer to it, the spring likes to cock over. You gotta prop something back there, push it that way in order to get it to sit in that pocket correctly. It's kind of a pain to get it back in, but it is definitely possible. I was able to do it with just a couple floor jacks and that little tool that I made on the top of there to align the control arms. And it's definitely possible from the back. I just did it, so